the haunted well of Loktaw Village. Loktaw Village lay nestled among golden rice fields and towering ancient trees, where time seemed to flow slowly with the rhythm of nature. Yet beneath its peaceful surface hid a terrifying secret. The old village well, a place steeped in mystery and whispered legends passed down through generations. This was no ordinary well. It was a silent witness to many tragedies and deaths, a portal between past and present, where spirits and sorrow intertwined. It was said that during full moon nights, the echo from the well wasn't just water sloshing. It was the sound of weeping, the cries of souls trapped below. When the wind blew, some villagers claimed they heard voices begging for help, mixed with curses that chilled the bones. Long ago, a poor family lived beside that well. Old Kwang, his wife, and their only daughter Hoa resided in a modest straw hut right at its edge. The villagers kept their distance, wary of the family's tragic past. One stormy night, when the whole village huddled indoors against the raging wind and thunder, screams erupted from near the well. No one dared to step outside. By morning, all that remained were corpses. Kwang and Hoa were found hanging beside the well, their eyes wide open in terror, while the wife lay curled up nearby, lifeless and empty. Since then, the well had been cursed, soaked in grief and haunted by the restless spirit of Hoa. Villagers claimed they saw her pale silhouette standing by the well during full moons, her eyes hollow yet sorrowful, whispering prayers or silent pleas into the night. Others spoke of strange shadows in the water's reflection, of children disappearing near the well, and of a force beneath the surface that pulled at the soul. No one dared approach it after sunset. Parents warned children, elders avoided walking near it, and even the bravest stayed away after dark. One foggy evening, a group of skeptical young villagers decided to test the legend. They were Min, bold and reckless Lan, a brave girl with fire in her eyes, and Tung, a rational mind who laughed off ghost stories. Under the full moon, they gathered at the edge of the cursed well. Min raised his flashlight and declared, "Let's prove there's nothing here but water. We'll show everyone it's all in their heads." Lan scoffed, masking her unease. Tung remained quiet, his gaze lifted to the stars as though seeking protection. They crept closer. The water was still, perfectly reflecting the moon like a haunted mirror. Min knelt down and reached into the water. Instantly, a sharp coldness crawled up his fingers, an unnatural chill, as though something beneath had taken hold. Suddenly, laughter echoed from the dark, brittle, and lifeless. "Who's there?" Min shouted, trying to steady his voice. Only silence replied. Then a faint shape began to form in the well's depths, a girl with loose, flowing hair and a white dress that shimmered like fog. Her eyes were empty yet brimming with a deep, mournful sadness. "That's Hoa," Lan whispered. "She's still waiting for something." Min leaned in closer, mesmerized. The ghostly girl slowly rose to the edge, looking straight at them. Her mouth didn't move, but her eyes seemed to scream. Suddenly, a cruel, mocking laugh rang out from the trees behind them. A different presence entirely. Some claimed it was Lin, another spirit long trapped by the well's curse. Lin was once a beautiful village girl who suffered a tragic fate, her soul twisted into something vengeful and filled with rage. The sound of her laughter drove the group into panic. The next few hours were a blur. They fled in terror, shaken to their core. What they had seen was no hallucination. It was real. After that night, the village changed. The well became more than a ghost story. It was a place of warning. The elders said it was not just a place of tragedy, but a vessel, one that carried the memories of every soul it had swallowed. When the wind howled and rain fell, villagers swore they heard voices. Not only Hoa's, but dozens of others, crying, whispering, asking to be remembered. One elderly woman, Granny Hunt, believed the well was a storyteller of the past. "This well has seen too much," she'd say. "And when something sees too much pain, it holds on to it. It curses the ground." She claimed the well punished those who disturbed it, but shared its secrets with those who truly listened. In her view, the spirits didn't want revenge. They wanted release. Then one autumn, a stranger arrived in the village, a man named Nam, a researcher of supernatural phenomena. With a calm voice and observant eyes, he stayed in the village, curious about the well's legacy. At night, he recorded voices and vibrations. He read old documents, listened to stories, and slowly pieced together the village's dark past. On one moonlit night, he stood alone beside the well, flashlight in one hand, voice recorder in the other. Suddenly, a soft voice echoed, "Help me, help me!" It was a girl's voice, broken and barely audible. Nam replied, heart pounding, "Tell me what you need. I'm listening." Only a sigh answered him. And then, shadows began to form. Not one, but many. Faces blurred by pain, mothers and children, old villagers, all swirling in a silent storm beneath the water's surface. Nam understood. These were not just ghost stories. These were people, forgotten, abandoned, trapped by history and silence. And they needed someone to bear witness. Over the following nights, Nam gathered clues. He uncovered an old tragedy, a collapsed tunnel, a murder, an accusation wrongly placed on Kwang's family. The village had buried its guilt and sealed its secrets inside the well. When he shared his findings, the villagers were shaken. For the first time in decades, they lit incense and gathered around the well to offer prayers, not out of fear, but acknowledgement. They whispered apologies. They remembered names. They brought flowers and lanterns. And one night, for the first time, the well was quiet. No voices, no shadows, just stillness. Nam believed that some spirits had found peace. Not all, but some. He left the village quietly, leaving behind his notes and a message. Listen to your past, honor it. Only then will the dead let go. To this day, the well remains. Some nights, the water still stirs. Some claim to hear Hoa's lullaby, but others say it's different now, softer, less sorrowful. The well has become more than a horror tale. It's a reminder of memory, of responsibility, of what happens when we forget those who came before us. And when you pass through Loktot village on a quiet night, stop and listen. The well might still be telling its story if you dare to hear it. The Hollow Ones. It started with a phone call no one should ever receive. At exactly 2:17 a.m., Mara's phone rang, vibrating violently on her nightstand like it wanted to escape. The name on the screen read Mom, but her mother had been dead for 6 years. Mara didn't pick up. The next morning, she tried to laugh it off. Probably a scam or a glitch, she said to herself as she stirred sugar into her coffee. But deep down, something sharp twisted in her stomach. She checked the call log. There it was. Incoming call. Duration, 0. She told herself not to worry, but it didn't stop. The calls came every night, always at 2:17 a.m., always from Mom. After the third night, she answered. All she heard was breathing, shallow, raspy, like someone trying to speak through water. "Who is this?" Mara demanded, voice trembling. The breathing grew more frantic, then stopped. Then came the whisper. "You opened the door." Mara didn't sleep after that. She turned to her sister, Evelyn, who had always believed in the supernatural. Evelyn listened calmly, too calmly, as Mara poured out the story. "What do you mean I opened the door?" Mara asked her sister. Evelyn looked pale. "Did you keep anything of hers? Something personal?" Mara hesitated. "Yes, her mirror, the one from her bedroom." Evelyn's eyes widened. "You need to get rid of it." That night, Mara stood in front of the antique mirror, tracing the ornate carvings along its frame. Snakes and roots tangled in a twisted dance. The glass shimmered oddly, even in darkness. When she looked into it, her reflection seemed delayed, like watching herself through an old videotape. She wrapped the mirror in a thick blanket, tied it with twine, and shoved it in the attic. That was a mistake. At exactly 2:17 a.m., the door to the attic creaked open on its own. The temperature in her house plummeted. Mara woke shivering, breath fogging the air. She stepped out into the hallway, barefoot, each floorboard groaning beneath her like a warning. The attic door gaped like a mouth. She climbed the stairs, her flashlight flickering with every step. The mirror was uncovered. The blanket lay in a heap beside it. But the mirror wasn't reflecting her. It was showing a room she didn't recognize. A dark, stone chamber lit by a single candle, and there were people in it. At least, she thought they were people. They had no faces, just smooth, pale skin where their eyes and mouths should be. They stood in a circle, unmoving, heads tilted toward the mirror, as if they could see her. As she stared, one of them lifted a hand and tapped on the inside of the mirror. A soft knock echoed into the attic. Tap, tap, tap. Mara stumbled back. The mirror shimmered again, and her own reflection returned. But not entirely. Her reflection was smiling. She wasn't. The next morning, the mirror was back in her bedroom. She was sure she hadn't moved it. The house began to change after that. Shadows pooled in corners even during the day. Whispers drifted through the air vents. always at 2:17. Her reflection sometimes lingered a second too long after she moved. The lights flickered, bulbs burst, and objects vanished only to reappear in odd places. The worst part was the dreams. Mara found herself trapped in that stone chamber, surrounded by the faceless figures. She couldn't move. They pressed closer and closer, whispering in voices she couldn't hear, until they began peeling her skin away, not with blades, but with touch. Gentle, patient. She always woke screaming. She tried to leave town, packed a bag and drove 6 hours before she had to stop for gas. She went into the station's bathroom and froze. There, on the cracked wall, was her mother's mirror. Impossible. She drove back. Desperate, she turned again to Evelyn, who returned with a stranger. A woman named Althea, thin, pale, with milky white eyes. She never blinked. Althea carried a black leather bag filled with objects Mara didn't recognize. Chalk, bones, black candles that oozed ash instead of wax. "You let them in," Althea said flatly. "They are the hollow ones. They feed on grief, reflection, and memory." "How do I stop them?" Mara whispered. "You don't. You pay the price. Or someone else does." That night, Althea performed a ritual in Mara's bedroom, drawing symbols on the mirror in lamb's blood. Evelyn chanted prayers in a language Mara didn't understand. The candles flickered blue. The mirror began to vibrate. A hand burst through the glass, white, smooth, eyeless. Then another. A body began to emerge. Mara screamed. Althea barked orders. "Don't move. Don't speak its name." But it was too late. Mara had whispered, "Mom?" The figure stepped fully from the mirror. It looked like her mother, but its eyes were empty voids. Its mouth opened unnaturally wide, revealing a throat filled with writhing tendrils. "You called me back," it hissed. Evelyn tried to grab Mara, but the creature was faster. It lunged forward, grabbed Evelyn by the face, and in seconds, peeled her away like a paper mask. Evelyn collapsed, her features gone, her body twitching. Althea shouted something and threw a vial at the creature. Smoke exploded and it screamed, stumbling back into the mirror. The glass cracked, but didn't shatter. Althea turned to Mara, blood dripping from her ears. "You have one chance. Bury the mirror where no light touches. Or next time it will not go back." Mara didn't sleep. She drove to the old quarry at the edge of town before sunrise. Dug a pit with her bare hands, nails bleeding. Threw the mirror in, buried it, covered it with stones. Then she ran. Years passed. She changed her name, moved cities, got therapy, told herself it wasn't real. But she never bought another mirror, until last week. Her new apartment came with a decorative one on the wall. She laughed it off. Then, this morning, at exactly 2:17 a.m., her phone rang. It read, "Evelyn." She answered. There was no sound, just a low, steady breathing. And then the whisper, "We never left." The Lantern Man. In the rural village of Halbrook, people didn't walk near the woods after sunset. Not because of wolves, not because of the cold, but because of the Lantern Man. They say he appears on foggy nights, carrying a lantern that glows like fireflies trapped in glass. His face is always hidden beneath a burlap hood stitched with a crude smile. He doesn't speak, he doesn't chase. He simply walks, and if you follow him, you never come back. At least not the same. It started with a dare. 4 teenagers, restless and reckless, snuck out one night with flashlights, laughing about the village ghost story. Their names were Katie, Jules, Ben, and Owen. They brought beer, music, and confidence. By midnight, the woods were covered in a thick, silent mist. Katie saw it first, a faint flicker deep between the trees. "Lantern Man?" she joked. But the others grew quiet. The light swayed, left, right, forward, back, like it was calling them. Jules grinned, pulled out her phone, and started recording. "Let's go say hi." Only Katie hesitated. "It's probably some drunk farmer," she said, but her voice wavered. Ben and Owen laughed, and soon they were all walking deeper and deeper into the forest, following the... The fog grew thicker. Their flashlights dimmed. The trees leaned in closer, branches like grasping hands, and the lantern stayed just out of reach. "Let's go back," Katie said suddenly, but when she turned, the trail behind them was gone. Only fog, only silence. "Guys?" she called, but no one answered. She was alone. The others had vanished. She screamed, ran, tripped, fell, ran again. The fog pulsed. Then she saw it, the lantern, just ahead. But this time, it wasn't floating. It was in a hand. And behind the glow stood a figure, 7 feet tall, draped in a tattered coat. His face was hidden behind a burlap sack, stitched into a crooked grin. No eyes, no mouth. only black holes. Katie froze. The man tilted his head. Then, with a slow, fluid motion, he raised his hand and beckoned. She turned and ran until she passed out. They found her the next morning at the edge of the forest, clothes torn, feet bloody, eyes wide open and unblinking. She never spoke again. Only stared at the tree line, rocking back and forth. The other three? Never found. The village buried empty coffins. After that, no one entered the woods, except for one man, Walter Finch, an ex-priest turned recluse. He claimed the Lantern Man was not a ghost, but a collector of souls, a remnant of something older than God, bound to the forest by ritual and blood. Walter said the lantern didn't show light. It fed on it. Fed on the essence of people, on their warmth, on their memories. You don't follow him, Walter said once. You fall into him. Nobody listened, until the dreams started. People across the village began waking up with muddy feet. They reported nightmares of standing at the tree line, hearing whispers, seeing flickering lights under their eyelids even when awake. Children disappeared from locked houses. One man gouged his own eyes out, screaming that the light won't go away. So the village held a meeting. They asked Walter for help. He agreed, but only once. On the coldest night of the year, under a new moon, Walter entered the woods with a Bible, a knife, and a silver lantern of his own. He didn't return, but something else did. The next morning, the village church was burned to the ground. On the ashes, carved into the stone, were 5 words: "He walks in you now." Since then, the Lantern Man hasn't just haunted the woods. He's been seen in reflections, in windows, in dreams. Sometimes people see a flicker behind them while brushing their teeth. A tall shape in the TV screen when it's off. A pair of boots just outside the back door. And once you see him, you belong to him. Those marked by the Lantern Man begin to change. They forget names, they lose time, they begin humming a song that doesn't exist. And eventually, their eyes begin to glow faintly in the dark. They start carrying candles, lighters, flashlights that never turn off. Until one day, they vanish. And the next person to walk past the forest will see a new light among the trees. Not a lantern, a face. And it's smiling. The last patient. The hospital had been abandoned for decades, swallowed by time, vines, and silence. Sitting like a carcass at the edge of town, St. Alora's mental asylum was the kind of place that children dared each other to enter and adults whispered about after midnight. No one went near it anymore, not since the fire. But Thomas Blake had a reason to return. Thomas, 31, was a freelance journalist obsessed with the unexplained. His blog, Dark Documentaries, had grown in popularity, and he prided himself on venturing where others wouldn't. The story of St. Alora's was one of fire, madness, and a patient that vanished the night everything went up in smoke. No bodies were recovered, just ashes and one scorched patient record. Patient number 219, L. Crow. The doors to the hospital groaned open with a reluctant screech. The air was dense with mildew and a faint, bitter smell of burned chemicals. Flashlight in one hand, camera in the other, Thomas stepped inside. His boots crunched on broken tiles and scattered glass. "All right," he whispered, voice echoing faintly. "Let's find Crow." He started in the administration wing. Yellowed papers were strewn across the floor like autumn leaves. Graffiti screamed nonsense on the peeling walls, and mold bloomed like bruises across forgotten files. In the records room, he found scorched cabinets and a single intact folder inside a fireproof safe. Patient number 219, L. Crow, age unknown. Diagnosis, acute dissociation violence risk. The notes were erratic, written in different hands. Some pages were torn. One nurse's note read, "Refuses to speak, stares at walls. Sometimes, he smiles when alone. No one knows why." Another, "Woke up screaming last night. Scratched symbols into his cell wall with fingernails. Asked for the mirror again." Thomas blinked. Mirror? He followed the floor plan toward the patient wing. Room 13, the record said. Crow's cell. As he walked down the hallway, the temperature dropped. Each door he passed bore a different type of damage. Burn marks, dents, scratches. When he reached room 13, the door hung ajar like an invitation. Inside, the walls were blackened. On one, scratched deep into plaster, were strange glyphs. Circles intersected by lines, spirals, and something like an eye. Thomas raised his camera and snapped a photo. Then he turned and saw it. A mirror, standing alone in the corner, untouched by time or fire. Its frame was iron, twisted into the same symbols that lined the walls, but the glass, it wasn't reflective. It was black. Not glossy, not dirty, just black. Thomas approached. His flashlight flickered. For a moment, the beam grew weaker, shadows swelling around him like oil. He lifted the flashlight, but the light died. Silence, total and crushing. He turned back toward the hallway, suddenly disoriented. The door was gone. Only walls. His heart thundered in his chest. What the hell? The mirror glowed faintly, a pulse, like a heartbeat. He backed away, breath trembling in his throat. Then a voice, a whisper, deep and dry, spoke behind him. You see now, don't you? He spun around, no one, just the mirror. But in its surface, he saw something. Not a reflection, a room. Another room, identical to the one he stood in, but darker. And in it, someone was watching him. A figure. Slender, with long arms and no face. Just pale, stretched skin and a gaping mouth stitched shut. He screamed and turned to run, slamming into the wall. Pain bloomed across his shoulder. He scrambled to the floor. When he looked up, the door had returned. Without questioning it, he bolted. The hallway outside had changed. It wasn't burned. It was clean. Pristine, even. The lights buzzed above him. Somewhere, a voice paged over the intercom. Dr. Morrigan to the East Wing, please. Dr. Morrigan. He froze. This wasn't the ruin he had entered. It was alive. St. Alora's, as it had been. He stepped into the hallway, disoriented. Nurses walked past him. Orderlies pushed gurneys. No one saw him. He tried to speak, to ask where he was. No one responded. He was invisible. A sudden scream ripped through the corridor. Nurses ran past him toward the East Wing. Curious and terrified, Thomas followed. Down hallways that shimmered like heat waves, past doors that pulsed as if they breathed. He turned a corner and froze. Crow stood there. He recognized him from the grainy photos in the file. Tall, slender, eyes like pits. But now he wasn't just watching. He was waiting. Crow raised a hand and pointed at Thomas. You came looking, he rasped. Thomas tried to move, but his body locked. He felt weight pressing on him. In his mind, voices screamed. You wanted the truth. You wanted me. Then Crow's stitched mouth ripped open, threads falling like dead spiders. From his throat came a sound that made Thomas bleed from his ears. Not a scream. A call. The mirror behind Crow opened. A void. Thomas was yanked forward by unseen hands, pulled toward the darkness. He fought, claws raking across his mind. He screamed, begged, please, let me go. But the last thing he saw was Crow stepping aside, smiling. And then, darkness. He awoke in the ruins. Daylight. Birds chirped outside, shattered windows. His flashlight was broken. His camera was gone. And the mirror? Just a cracked frame on the floor. He stumbled out, dazed and weak, lungs burning with every breath. He made it to his car. Drove home. Didn't say a word. But that night, when he looked in his bathroom mirror, the reflection didn't blink. It just smiled. Would you like a 16:9 eerie illustration for this story as well?